but provided by another satellite. So as you can see, it's not a usual thing to look at, because it shows us the vegetation. So it shows it gets out the vegetation areas. This is the same one, but it gives us a view of the heat still on the same spot. So you can always relate to the 3 dots, the 3 pyramids, but it gives us the heat profile of a destination. This is also a satellite data. We call it a distance map. It's a radar map. So it gives us the distance to a specific target. This is also a satellite data. This is the basic displacement. With satellites, we can calculate the millimetric displacement of a structure. So this is very relevant for cultural heritage as well. So just to tell you that satellites is not only about photos that we can see and to spot our house from in Google Earth or something like that. It gives us really a view of very diverse physical quantities that we can measure and that we can follow across time. A possibility then. So this is work that we've done with Malta Tourism Authority, who is here in the audience, and you can actually relate to them. So environmental monitoring of a specific area, providing the scientific evidence of, yes, my destination is best when it comes to air quality, when it comes to preservation to ecosystems. So we can provide this data. We can compare it to the standards if they exist. So in this case, we've compared it to the World Health Organization, for example, standards for air quality and pollution. We can follow the artificialization as well to see, okay, how much of my land have been used for tourism purposes, and how did this evolve over time? And I can report on that. So the impact, the material impact on ecosystems, I have a tangible measurement on that. I also have a possibility to do scenario playing, to say, okay, if I attract 1,000 more persons on my territory, what would be the impact on the air pollution? What would be the impact on vegetation, for example? Something very concrete that can go into advising people visiting my destination, for example. Instead of providing them just with a map with the points of interest, we can, based on environmental quantities, tell them, okay, this is the most pleasant route in order to visit my points of interest based on environmental conditions and time. So it's not only a navigation application, it's also, let's visit this place in the best possible conditions when it comes to heat, when it comes to like pleasant route. How would climate change impact my activities? And this is work that we did, for example, in the Alps, in Parc des Écrins, where we've showed them projections till 2100, and yeah, with not news that's not that good, but at least geographically they can see what will be the areas that are most impacted and prepare in advance to change that and to adapt to that. Also, sea level rise, all of these things that come as well from satellite data, because satellite data allows us to have a very clear, precise mapping of the terrain, project the IPCC scenarios for climate change, different scenarios, optimistic, pessimistic, and to see what will be the areas that will be most impacted, flooded or not flooded, or risk of flooding, for example. Something more concrete as well for the short and medium term, we use this type of application. So here it's an example in the Montagne Basque, so in France, where we put the environmental conditions that I'm witnessing today and that are forecasted for next week, and to tell the authorities, these are the activities that are most adapted to your territory. And then we don't stop there. We give them the possibility to project scenarios, be it climate change induced or policy induced, to see what would be the impact on the professionals in their destinations when it comes to playing different policy and climate change scenarios. Carrying capacity as well. How many people can I host in a territory without having an impact on a negative impact on the environment, ecosystems? So I can host 1,000, 2,000 people without having a negative impact. Above that, it will be negative, and proven by the statistical performance of the destination. As well on pollution, we can do the same thing. And if I have a specific event, we talked very briefly regarding telecommunications, for example. And so these are things that we can put in place in order to cater for a significant increase in number of visits in a specific site. But also, so that's we do for telecommunications, we prepare for these events, but also we can calculate, okay, if a big event like this takes place on 2 or 3 days, what would be the impact on the area that where this event is taking place? So that's also stuff that we can map and project in the future. And finally, and I will stop on this example, is a attractivity profile of a destination, and this feeds in directly to the discussion on the EU green claims, is how to actually assess the attractivity of a destination from different dimensions. Here are just some examples of comfort, outdoor potential, biodiversity, well-being, etc., but based on hard scientific and proven data. So yeah, just to tell you that last year we have been endorsed by the UNWTO, the UN Tourism now. Obviously, we benefit from the support from ESA and EUSPA, and we are very grateful to that because this is what helped us actually develop these different services and knowledge, and that we are happy to share with different destinations. But also from the local, more local, like regional in Toulouse. We're based in Toulouse, France. I forgot to say that, by the way. So lovely region if you want to visit. Yeah, so that's it for me. Thanks a lot for your attention, and happy to take questions afterwards if you're available.
All right. Thank you very much, Tarek. So I just want to remind everybody you could post your question on Slido with the same hashtag GSTC2024Sweden. So yes, so I think that was a great examples of how satellite data innovation can support destination planning. So Bijan, will he be the next speaker to talk a bit about the risk management side of things and also the sustainability assessment of data? Bijan, please.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. And I promise to get back to the risk side and destination aspects of using Earth observation and satellite imagery. But as a transition, I also want to focus on some of the work we're doing at Hotel Resilient that connects with the work Because is doing. So let's see if we have luck this time. Okay. Yeah, specifically, I want to focus on small and medium-sized hotels that face two major hurdles to be participating in the sustainable travel market. One is the costly certification that a lot of them cannot afford, and the other is challenges in measurement, specifically inefficiencies created by the time-consuming process of completing self-assessments that travel companies request from them. Many of you might be familiar with this problem. Tour operators, DMCs, send questionnaires that are very similar to each other to hotels, and they complete them over and over and send them out, but it doesn't get shared. So this is an issue that we try to tackle within Hotel Resilient, and it started really with a collaboration that EXO and Kiri were doing, two leading DMCs in Southeast Asia, and they decided to standardize their sustainability assessment process, align it with the GSTC criteria, and then importantly share that information with each other after they verified it. And then use the Hotel Resilient platform to do so. So since then, Hotel Resilient has evolved into a network of trusted and growing tour operators and destination management companies for streamlining and collecting, sharing, verifying sustainability information on hotels. And it's free for hotels to use. They just complete one comprehensive assessment, and then it's shared across to other DMCs. And we use and leverage sort of the relationship and the expertise that DMCs have with their partner hotels to be able to verify this information. So we get verified information on the platform. And so that's really the collaboration and the standards element. There's this big part also on analytics that I want to talk to. So a lot of what we do is also measurement, relating back to the Earth observation data. So information on disaster losses, climate impacts, water risk, biodiversity. All of this information is available at the destination level, but we also like to interact this information with the property data that we're collecting from hotels. So if you're collecting information on the building content, the emergency, critical infrastructure a hotel has, protocols that it has in place or not, that helps you connect that with the intensities of different hazards that are experienced there and get it to a measurement of resilience. And that's one of the other areas that we work in Hotel Resilience. And this data is underlined then by Risklayer information that's modeled and provided coming from the insurance and reinsurance industry, so projects we've done with Swiss Re, but also we're a data partner for the European Environmental Agency, the tourism platform on climate change, so to provide this information in tourism-relevant metrics. And the way the collaboration works, it's simple. You, as a DMC, can come into the system, look for a destination, and there will be some hotels already on the platform. You'll see what audits they've done, if it's been verified or not. You can add them to your own portfolio. If your hotel that you're working with is not on there, then you can send a request to a hotel. And once the hotel completes the assessment and you verify it, it gets shared across to other DMCs. And DMCs can then also provide links to tour operators to view portfolios of sustainable information. And they can create dashboards. They can look at this information and, for their entire portfolio, or drill down to the specific hotel and look at things like, what is the risk distribution that this property is facing? What are the difficult sort of climate impacts into the future? You have different ways of looking at this. What RCP scenario, emission scenario do I want to use? What time horizon am I interested in terms of the information that I'm trying to get? What type of hazards is it facing? And also in terms of emissions, what categories of emissions are they producing? This is a tool that's HCMI based that hotels can then use to complete sort of their emissions profile. And ultimately, hotels can showcase this information because travel organization, hotels associations are interested in comparable, consistent, and transparent data for their destinations. And this is a way, after the hotels complete these assessments, to also be able to, these microsites, be able to showcase and show this information. So moving on from sort of the hotel lens to all of this information, how do we use it at the destination scale? And I wanted to really highlight here a project that we're involved with, the tourism board in California, Visit California, where the objective of this project is to develop a sustainability and resilience strategy for the state of California and its 12 different tourism regions that it operates in. So the first thing that this project has done, and yesterday we talked a lot about stakeholder engagement, is really a participatory process to identify the issues of resilience and sustainability in the state of California that are relevant to them, and then use those issues that are identified to come up with what are critical success factors to become more resilient and for sustainable tourism growth in the state. And that really sets the roadmap for defining the strategy. So we came up with these 7 different critical success factors, and the first 3 are connected to, so it's done bottom up from the stakeholder engagement process, but we're aligning these and connecting them to global indicators and tools. In this case, it's the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction that focuses on resiliency as its core topic. So that's an area that we had to translate to the tourism context for California. The 4th area is sort of a transition one, and it talks all about investment into resilience and sustainability. And the last 3 focus really on SDGs that are connected to sustainability, from managing tourism growth that is sustainable, local community well-being and engagement, and environmental awareness. And a lot of this information can be quantified. And this is where Earth observation and data comes in. So when we talk about tourism risk, what is the actual impact of an earthquake, of a tsunami, of landslides, floods to my tourism assets? We can model these things and come up with, average annualized losses over time. We can look at climate impacts. We can look at emergency preparedness in a quantitative way, even by looking at shelter accessibility and metrics like that. A lot of it cannot be, and we had a discussion yesterday on this as well. How do we draw insights through qualitative assessments? And that's the right side of here. So each of these critical success factors is turned into a scorecard to try to measure what is the level of resilience now for each one of these 12 regions in California by engaging deeply with the stakeholders. And the result is a scorecard that's produced that integrates both of this quantitative and qualitative information together, and ultimately allows us then to provide incremental recommendations as part of the strategic planning for the state to get to the next level. So if in this particular element we're looking at understanding risk, how is this risk data being collected, being shared, being used by tourism that is often not sitting at the table when it comes to these topics. And if we're at level 3 right now, for example, in this slide that I'm showing, what would be the incremental recommendations along this area to advance towards targets we're setting through the Sendai and the SDGs for 2030? And finally, this is a very sort of data-intensive process. So the leave-in with the state is a digital platform that allows them to go back to these scorecards and annually sort of update this through a monitoring evaluation process, but have a corollary of all the analytics, the spatial data, and the information that we've turned into indicators for each one of these 7 different areas that we're looking at. And I wanted to leave you also as a final slide with the Risklayer website, if you will. There's a lot of global information freely available and accessible that you can already look at in terms of climate impacts, in terms of disaster risks, even some geopolitical risks that is shown here at a global level. And of course, in destinations we're working with, this gets customized for the destination. Additional data layers come in as a result of a curated process of working with the destination stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Bijan. So yeah, we got a lot of talk about these risk management, assessment, climate. These are all sounding quite technical and quite daunting. I guess maybe the last speaker will talk a little bit about the monetization aspect of all these and how, on the practical side of things, and some of these data can be sold and sustainable tourism can be promoted. So, Bikos, please.
Perfect. Just checking if this is working. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the session. Thank you so much for joining. So yeah, I'm here to present Because, which is the Sustainability Data Management Hub. And I think it's really important to say manage right now. We've been speaking about a lot of different forms of data. So we manage sustainability data for travel companies. Just shortly about me, as you can tell, I'm Danish. I have bright blue eyes, but I'm also Pakistani. I'm about to be a father as well, so if you see me running out of this room at any given point, then you know why. And that's all I'm going to say about myself. So I wanted to start this session not speaking about what it is that we do, but basically the journey that we've been through for the past, I would say around 1.5 years. We've existed for 5 years as a company, but for the past 1.5 years, we've been really focusing on the travel industry. And in this, we've been collaborating with different partners such as Booking.com, the certifications, GSTC, to understand how is data being distributed. What we're seeing lately is there's a more and more openness to share this data. Strong partnerships and collaborations are getting in place to harmonize and standardize frameworks. And things are actually happening, but it has to be from an ecosystem approach, which is why a conference like GSTC is so important. We cannot be siloed in this approach. We do need to work on this in a collaborative way. And that's also how we thought about it, Because, by creating win-win-win situations for all angles and all stakeholders in the industry. Now that's very high level. So what is it that we actually do? We sit as the centerpiece between the actors you see on the screen. We work with travel agencies, certifications, and hotel chains. And then we implement industry-led frameworks or compliance frameworks in our platform. These are the different stakeholders that we work with. And we add a regulatory compliance on top of this. So if you have to report in CSRD, UN Global Compact, we just heard about the EU Green Claims Directive. No, we do not help meet that compliancy, but we do want to inform about it. It's really, really important. And also in future, as you also just heard this year, the CSDDD, the acronyms and the alphabet jungle is getting more and more, also got finalized. So we add a compliancy aspect to when you have to report the administrative for these different companies. And then we have individual tools and solutions for each of the segments. First of all, for travel agencies, we work with different marketplaces such as Booking.com, WebBeds, Hotelbeds, Google, and we provide them data on which hotels are certified with what certification. And that's it. It's as simple as that. That's what we do. The tricky part of this is, well, it seems like it's a simple Excel that we're sending, but actually the challenge of the problem that was having before is the mapping. So we provide a mapping interface, that an algorithm which our CTO created, that maps the data to their database, leaving us now in a state where data is being shared with all of these providers on a weekly basis, with the latest data being uploaded by the certifications. Thereby, we work with certifications. We help collect this data, put it onto our platform, and then distribute it to all the different marketplaces. In addition to this, we've also seen in some of our work for the past year that certifications also might need some help with processing data, with managing data, storing data. So we also actually ended up creating a system that could help with that, so that we can have a better foundation of data from certifications that can be easily distributed to then the marketplaces. And finally, the segment that we're all speaking about is the hotels. So we work with hotel chains such as Radisson Hotel Group and Accor, where we've created a system that collects data from all their internal properties, aggregates it, allows it to be shared and distributed for different RFPs or marketplaces, creates CSRD reports, et cetera, on our platform. We have something new coming out, which I won't be talking too much about, but based on the same data, what hotels are certified in your destination is just another data point which we're also thinking about producing and working with different partners on distributing on that. This all happens on our one platform in Because, which is basically being at the center of action. That was enough about what we did, but what I really do want to stress about is the importance and the relevance of collaboration, having a harmonized and synergized approach in how we collect data, how we share data, how we compare data, thank you, and stronger benchmarking. And given that I'm the final panelist today, also to lead on to the next discussions on database innovation, I wanted to, I'm going to skip that slide, talk a little bit and give you some teasers about some of the ideas that if we have a great and strong foundation of data, what that could lead to. What you're seeing in front of you are just some of the ideas we've had at Because, had with different stakeholders around the world on what could this data, if it was collaborated in the proper way, mean. We could be driving over to AI-driven suggestions, which is you're missing data on CO2 scope 3. Peers have used this data source provider to source that data. Maybe you should do the same. Getting certified engine, making it easier for, and telling hotels on, hey, you're this far away from being certified with A, B, C, D, or E, you're missing 10% eligibility, start the flow. A whole new world of benchmarking so that you can compare the right size of the hotel at the right location with the right companion or peer in that industry. And then integrating to different tech partners as well, such as Hotel Resilience and others around in the industry who have great tech solutions. Imagine if you were told that, well, your food waste has been the same for the past 3 years, and here's Too Good To Go that can actually help you with that. Well, there's great startups out there that are providing niche solutions to specific sustainability challenges, and it's all about just finding them. And that's also another place where data can help on this. Thank you for listening, and enjoy. Look forward to the presentation.
All right. Well, thank you. So, perfect. No, that was exciting. Yeah. So you give us about 10 minutes or so on Q&A. So I have been gathering some questions. So Willie has this question that's voted up. Well, real-time data from space can be used to predict environmental impact of tourism. Is this already influencing carrying capacity decision of destination? I think so. So as I was kind of thinking about this Q&A section, I also have kind of a more generalized question I'd like to get perspective besides this one. It's just kind of how data in general are driving smarter decision making for sustainable tourism planning or other examples. So maybe Tarek, would you like to start on this? Seems this is a little bit about the carrying capacity of decision making for destinations. Yeah.
I don't know if you, yeah, that's good, that's good. Technology has a problem with me today, I don't know. Okay, so the refreshment rate, first of all, to talk about this, how much data can I have and in which time? Usually satellite data, we are able to do it depending on the quantity. So pollution, for example, we have a data point every 6 hours. So that's something that is quite real time, near real time. When it comes to other quantities like vegetation, etc., it's a weekly or maximum bi-weekly refreshment rate. So this gives us basically the capacity to, when we're talking about the carrying capacity, to give recommendations that are near real time. just before, for example, an event, we tell you this is the status of the vegetation in your area, this is the status of the pollution. Then if you host 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people, this would be the impact. So it's data, but the data powers modeling in order to do this small forecast part. So the data helps us assess the status today, and the model allows us to project the impact in the future. So yeah, that's hopefully this answers your question.
Yeah. Anyone else want to share your perspective on decision making with this data-supported innovation? Maybe Bijan, yeah?
Sure, yeah. I can focus maybe on disasters as one of these data indicators. For example, tourism destinations often don't know what is the impact on tourism assets. This information is maybe modeled by insurance companies, reinsurance companies, but there is a lot of gain to be had by knowing what is the average expected loss on a specific time horizon in order to plan and prioritize investments into tourism infrastructure and into other softer measures to mitigate and reduce these risks. So that's one of the contributions by having access to actually quantifiable data and then look at the impacts of climate change on future floods, on future coastal storms. That's a whole nother level of complexity with lots of uncertainty, but still having access to this information is better than sort of generic crisis management planning, which often gets done without a view of risk.
Great. How about the two space agency guys? Do you have anything to add to this? Or maybe perhaps other examples on potentially industry outside of tourism that's kind of using your space data to support this sort of city-wide planning or country-wide planning, so to speak.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different data that can be used, as you have seen in the slides, and it could be used to monitor the current situation, indeed to build some models. And I think in terms of, for instance, the Paris Olympic Games, they made big claims. Okay, they would like to be the most sustainable Olympic Games ever organized. But then you need to monitor and to prove that indeed it has happened. So it's about your credibility, and you need to have reliable data on which you can use. And I believe that space data is pretty trustable, of course, to be hybridized with other data. But yeah, I think it is one of the data that is super interesting to be able to get the credibility. Yeah.
All right.
One point I'd like to add,
Sure.
A lot of tourism happens in cities. People visit cities, and space data can help city planners assess how, for example, a certain location is affected by heat. So it can help you map urban heat islands. It can help you assess the state of greenery or how much green spaces are located throughout the city or throughout an area, and make planning decisions in that way.
Great. Okay, so we have another popular question, and there's like a related question, and this is a tricky one. So it's about, so we have all these growing number of AI or machine learning, which requires a large power base to harness this data. And obviously that's a bit counterintuitive in terms of the carbon emission of these data centers, I suppose. So perhaps the panelists, do you have any perspective on this? Maybe I'll throw this difficult question first to Rajan, maybe. Oh, sorry, Jahanzeeb, yeah, sorry. Yeah, you might be able to get some insightful perspective about this.
So basically the negative impact of having an
big data related environment.
It's a really, really interesting question. Don't know if I'm the right person from my team to ask that, or if it's the Chief Sustainability Officer, but I would say that would be our biggest material topic for a company like us, for a SaaS company, our travel, and that would be, so obviously there needs to be put plans into place where that part of our material topic is being addressed, and sensors are being set up around the world that are more cost effective, that are more sustainable. So choosing the right supplier for such is also important. So for us, as a SaaS company, I would say it's really, really important. I would say currently our biggest emission factor is still travel, even for a SaaS company itself, because that's where we're producing most negative impact. So yeah, I don't know what more to add to that question, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I
Yep,
can clearly
please.
go probably,
Yes.
yeah. This is something that is at the core of the design of how space data operates. I'll tell you why. Because space data is quite the volumetry is quite big. Because you have a constellation of satellites. We're talking about today about 10 satellites from the Copernicus program who are operating. We call them systematic programming, meaning that they cover all the surface of the Earth, which is not the case for commercial, for example, constellations that capture specific areas that you pay. But the European Union decided to go in this direction. Despite that, this is just a quick parenthesis, is that all the data captured by Copernicus throughout the whole year is less than the data captured by Facebook and Instagram per week. So just to give you an order of magnitude is that social media is far ahead when it comes to data that is mostly useless, but that's my own take on it. So that's the volume. Despite that, the European Union is funding as well through European Space Agency and the EUSPA, by the way, a computational platform. That's centralized platform where they host the satellite data and puts it in the same spot to avoid transitioning this data across different data centers across Europe or across the globe, because the data is open and free. So basically you are capable of just extracting it, using it elsewhere. And these platforms allows you also to process the data. So this is what companies like us do, since we have this also concerns regarding the computation power that is required. So what we do is that we deploy our algorithms I'll spare you with the technical details, but we call it like cloud optimization and so on, processing very close to the data to avoid data transitioning in all places and so on. So we process the volumetric, the biggest volumetry just beside the data. This way we do not transfer it, and then we transfer only the results to different dashboards, clients, etc. that can be across the globe. So yeah, this is a big topic. Green IT is a big topic. Most of the, I think, startups that were created in the past 5 or 6 years have this really at the core, because of environmental consciousness, obviously, but also because of costs, because transferring data costs a lot, and you have all the advantages of processing just beside the data source and not taking it around the globe.
Great. So maybe let's switch gear a bit. So I think there's a bunch of questions coming in for BCOS about your platform. Will they include tours or attractions beyond just hotels? And also the second question is, how do you calculate carbon for CSRD?
Yeah, great question. So I'm just going to take them in bits. Yes, but we are a startup, and I guess Tarek and Bijan can address this as well. Our focus this year and last year has been mainly on hotels, and then it's about creating the right platform, the full suite, and then copy-pasting that to other sectors. Getting tour data, it would be in the same manner and the same structure that we would be doing this today. Many certifications to certify that as well. Getting restaurant data even is also another section that we will also be looking into. So yes. And in regards to how to calculate carbon, so given that we work specifically for hotels right now that need to do carbon calculation, we use the HCMI methodology and have digitized that on our platform, and it's free to use for any hotel. We follow guidelines, principles of what industry organizations such as Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, GSTC, Travelers recommend, and we implement that. So it was Excel-based before, and we simply just digitized it and then made it free so that any hotel can use it. Now, the HCMI is not yet approved as far as I've heard lately as the GST protocol, but it does follow the GST protocol, and that is what the CSRD requires.
Great, thank you. So just sort of on a related question, I think there was a few of you asked about data accessibility and portability, because I think standardization of data is quite a challenge, right, in the whole spectrum of sustainable tourism measurement or data sharing. So perhaps, Bijan, you might have some perspective on that in terms of your hotel resilience project assessment, and maybe BCOS and other folks from the space industry can share about the data portability and accessibility issue as well.
Yeah, I think the perspective I can offer is what I presented, sort of the challenge, if you don't have a certification, if you haven't gone through that standardized process of, providing information on sustainability, but you're doing all the right things. And because of your smaller size, maybe you're actually much better positioned to be sustainable than a large hotel chain. And the argument is that we're missing that segment of the market. They're not part of the sustainable travel market. And that's where Hotel Resilient is trying to provide a solution by making it free and easy, so minimizing sort of the effort on the hotel side to provide this information, because once they've entered it once, then it maximizes the efficiency of the tour operators, of destination management companies, hotel associations, DMOs, all sorts of tourism stakeholders to be able to access this data openly. So that's the idea of this collaboration platform to address this issue.
Right. But because any sort of standardization that you see?
Oh my God, standardization is such a big topic. But I mean, one thing which Because does, and we've been really stressing this in our culture at the company, is we need to solve the root cause. And I think everybody can agree that we're doing a lot of reporting in different frameworks, answering the same question over and over and over again. And creating new frameworks where standardization is not a holy grail of having one framework that rules them all. Rather, we see it in a way that what if we were mapping the frameworks to each other? This brings into a whole other area of problems, which I'll also come up with an example. But because we've actually mapped the different frameworks to each other, so if the same question or answer can be reused in other constellations, then we allow that to be happen, and we tell that to the user. So that's our standardization closest approach. The problem with this is the formatting of the questions. So a very simple example, if one framework is asking for, do you have vegan/vegetarian options? And another framework is asking, do you have vegan options? Do you have vegetarian options? You can see where the issue of mapping happens, is one doesn't answer the other. So we're hoping that these insights, now that we're mapping frameworks, will be provided back to the owners of the frameworks so that they can standardize the frameworks to what everybody is doing as well. Because we don't want to be having this administrative reporting of just reporting, 90% of the budget on sustainability being spent there, and then not being spent on initiatives that make an actual difference.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I have to take this. So innovations obviously is not exclusive to men, and we're conscious of the inequality of this panel, so feedback for GSTC, but certainly we'd love to have maybe the European Space Agency representative to talk about some woman entrepreneur or other examples of success stories of innovation done by women innovators.
Yes. Yeah, a lot. It's a super broad question, so I don't know what is expected really. But indeed, we're supporting all innovative entities and all innovators, so there's no discrimination in terms of gender and overall possible discrimination type. Indeed, we did have a diversity, equity, and inclusivity call for tenders last year, and it was just aiming at addressing those kind of topic. I was thinking also, so it's not just a woman, it's diversity at large. So yes, supporting all kinds of innovators, but also supporting service and solutions that are inclusive. And it's super important because we are developing the measurement of our social impact and also environmental impact on top of the economic impact. That being said, also there's a topic that I think could be quite interesting. I didn't heard this in this conference. It's about the demographic inversion. I was thinking, yes, it's happening right now. And what about the adaptation also of the tourism industry to the aging population? I guess, yes, we can build models on the data we have today. Climate change make models quite maybe a little less accurate, let's say. And also, what about the behavior and the way the tourism will evolve in the future years, taking into account the accessibility problems and the overall health-related problems of proposing still tourism to the generation which is coming to the end of the work.
Yep.
I'd just like to add to that question just a little bit.
Yeah,
as well.
sure.
This is my personal opinion, so no way is this linked to Because, but I actually feel that women are driving more sustainable solutions in startups. I think many of you know Too Good To Go, and the CEO of that is a woman, a Dane as well, which I'm proud of. And the CEO of Climate.co is also a woman. So we're seeing a lot more, at least in our network in Denmark, a lot more innovation being driven by women in sustainability solutions, very niche specific solutions that actually drive impact. So I'm seeing it as
Thank
really
you
being pushed
for your add-on to it. Yeah. There you go.
If I can, absolutely,
yes, Peter,
yeah,
I'm sure.
absolutely
Yes,
second that. I mean, we see within the Cassini initiative, when the proposals we obtain and select, we have a lot of even female-only teams, a lot of successful women entrepreneurs. For example, just in the idea stage of the Cassini challenges earlier this year, there was a winner called Trimber who works with monitoring the logging and deforestation in the timber industry. And it's led by a CEO who's a woman. We had a team composed only of women at a hackathon called Carbonica who work with hackathons. And there are really many examples, and we see really an uptake of teams of women.
Yeah, I will just add one
Yes,
last thing.
please.
It is very important. The co-founder of Murmuration is a lady, so we are 50-50, and the teams is very balanced. But I'll tell you, even for the technical teams, because this is important. Usually, when you're looking for a marketing team, communications, it's easier to hire girls than boys. That's just how it is in France, at least. For technical, it happened in the past very few times that we were struggling to find female candidates for software developments and so on, and it took us 3-4 months in order to hire someone while we needed someone right away. So just to find the right candidate. So there is a difference, I think, between like intentions. We want to be gender balanced. We are gender balanced because we are 50-50. We are 20, and we have 10 girls and 10 boys. So that's perfect, even on the board of directors and so on. But it takes time, it takes effort, especially for the technical things. You shouldn't be in a rush. So now we actually, since we powered by this experience in the past, we anticipate. So we usually have 1 or 2 very technical ads, for recruitment ads, that are there because we're seeing a need probably that will pop up in 6 months and so on, so that we can collect CVs and so on. While as soon as we publish it, we have 10 guys who can respond to that. It takes 2 or 3 months before we start getting some female candidates. So that's just,
Yeah. Well, definitely, I think I'm going to close with this because we're in a very data-driven, AI-driven environment right now. So having a very balanced and inclusive perspective that's incorporated, I think it's truly going to be very critical, especially for the future of our sustainable society. Sorry, we didn't really get to one last question, but I think I'll let Tarek to take that offline, which was a popular question to ask about the cost of your solution, but I think that could be a sort of a coffee break discussion.
Yeah,
I want to thank everybody again for participating in this database innovation in tourism panel, and I think it was a great discussion. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it, and we'll promise to give it to this feedback to GSTC, the woman inclusively. It's not the afterthought. Okay, so, all right, thank you, everybody. Okay, yep.